Okay, here are the results.
Events take place in the near future. Earth's resources are severely depleted due to overpopulation. To cope with this crisis, all countries must reduce their population by 5% annually. All students in America must take a special exam every year. Those who fail are subject to physical elimination. The exam is known as 10 to 241, but most call it the thinning. 18 hours before the thinning begins, Lena helps Simon prepare for tomorrow's exam, but he is too nervous and cannot memorize learning material. Simon gives the girl an envelope of money in exchange for a special cheat sheet. Lena reminds him not to show it to anyone and to destroy it immediately after the exam. The girl receives a call from a doctor who informs that her mother wants to be discharged from the hospital against medical advice. Now all the clues to the exam are literally in front of Simon's eyes. Lena, along with her brother and sister, arrives at the hospital to see their mother, who refuses to continue hospitalization. Lena thinks it's a bad idea, as no one at home can help the mother. The doctor asked Lena to speak with him alone and informed that her mother's condition is deteriorating rapidly. Even in the hospital, doctors would be powerless to do anything. Lena cannot hold back her tears. Blake escaped from the governor's residence 12 hours before the thinning and met his girlfriend, Ellie. They agreed not to discuss tomorrow's exam, realizing that it might be their last meeting. The couple planned to spend the night together. At some point, Ellie admitted that she was scared. Suddenly someone shone a flashlight on them. The man took Blake to the governor. Dean Redding is extremely unhappy with his son's irresponsible attitude towards the exam, which determines his future. The governor also doesn't like the son's girlfriend, who distracts him from what is really important. There are only 3 hours left before the thinning. The school where the exam will take place is under armed guard. When Simon collided with a boy, he lost his cheat sheet and panicked because he cannot pass the exam without it. Parents say goodbye to their children, whom they may see for the last time. Each student is carefully screened. Blake approached Lena and asked if she could sell him one of her cheat sheets.
I just gave the last one away.
It turned out that Lena had long been unrequitedly in love with Blake. One of the students was suspected of using a cheat sheet. The boy panicked and ran away, but the armed guards quickly caught him and apprehended. A guy named Kellen filmed it on his phone. He has a journalist acquaintance who is interested in such materials. Blake hugged a crying Ellie, telling her that she would be okay. However, in reality, he was no less anxious than she was. The security guards blocked all the exits from the school. There are 15 minutes left before the exam starts. The students were seated in the auditorium. Each of them was very frightened because there was a real threat of not surviving this day. The teachers addressed the students with a motivational speech. The exam lasts for 2 hours, talking is prohibited. There is no possibility of retaking the test. Each student was given a tablet. After identification, they started the test while under the observation of the committee. There is only 1 minute left until the end of the exam. The students began to feverishly solve the remaining tasks. When the time was up, they were told to put their tablets on the desks. Everyone present was very nervous because their fate was being decided right now. The exam results were ready in a few minutes. Before hearing this, Blake and Ellie held hands. The members of the admissions committee began to call out names. Those who failed the test were taken away by the guards. Someone tried to escape to save themselves, but in vain. Ellie was also taken away. Blake didn't even have time to understand what had happened. The teachers congratulated the other students on successfully passing the exam. Blake called his father and told him that Ellie was sent to the thinning. Blake hoped that the father, using his influential connections, could help. But Dean said they all have to act according to the law. Lena saw that Simon, who was studying in a different class, failed the exam. At that moment, Blake attacked a security guard and told Ellie to run. But the guards almost immediately caught her, as well as Blake. The lovers were separated forever. The events then take us a year ahead. The thinning is only 24 hours away. A girl named Sarah came to Mr. Glass, who is part of the committee. Meanwhile, Kendra Birch, the teacher, visited Lena and asked if everything was okay. Lena is worried because her younger sister has her first exam tomorrow. Blake still cannot come to terms with the fact that his beloved is gone. Sarah managed to negotiate with Mr. Glass. Kendra Birch saw this. Meanwhile, Blake recorded a farewell video. There are 3 hours left until the thinning. Hugging her younger sister Corinne, Lena said she loves her. Dean went into his son's room to wish him good luck. Blake still hasn't forgiven his father for not saving Ellie a year ago. For Lena and Kellen, this is the final exam. After this, they won't have to fear for their lives anymore. Unlike others, a cheeky guy named Wade Freeman, whose parents are influential people, is not worried at all. Everyone wonders how he managed to pass the test in all previous years. As usual, 15 minutes before the exam, all exits were blocked. At this time, the governor's aide handed him a letter from his son. Before the test, the youngest class was shown a cute video about planet Earth, which recently suffered from severe overpopulation. Fortunately, boys and girls from all over the world came together and came up with a plan to reduce the population of the planet by 5% every year. Unable to handle this, Miss Cole, a lower-grade teacher, went outside to calm down. Meanwhile, the pupils continued to watch the video, which said that only the smartest children would remain in the country. Miss Cole returned to the classroom and asked the pupils to take tablets in their hands. The graduating class also began the exam. The governor watched Blake's farewell video, in which he said that he would intentionally fail the test today. If his father respects the laws, he will have to accept this system that will send his son to the thinning. The governor, who needs to give a speech, is ready to do anything to thwart his plan. Meanwhile, Blake answered test questions at random. Mason King, in charge of security, received a call. A pupil asked Mrs. Cole to help with one of the tasks, but she could not do so. Mason, against the rules, substituted the test results for some students. The exam was over. Mrs. Cole turned on a song and called out the names of several pupils, asking them to leave the classroom. Blake was shocked to realize that he had passed the test successfully. Lena, on the other hand, failed even though she was the smartest in the class. The governor called Mason to make sure that Blake's test was counted. Dean approved the thinning and prepared to give a speech to the public. Kendra Birch stopped an officer, saying that there was a mistake because Lena had the highest grades among the students. However, the officer replied that the mistake was ruled out. Unnoticed by the security, Kendra put something in Lena's hand, telling her that there is always a chance. Soon there was a graduation party. Blake still wonders why he did not fail the test. At the party, Kendra noticed how her colleague whispered something in Sarah's ear and took her away. The public greeted the governor with applause. He gave a fiery speech, saying that their state is leading in education level in America. At the same time, those who failed the test were led in formation through the gloomy corridors. Blake does not intend to accept the existing order of things. The students were forced to line up against the wall for disinfection. Blake sneaked to the thinning rooms unnoticed. While the governor praised the perfect society they had created, the students were being prepared for the thinning. Blake pretended to be sick and asked the officer for help, then attacked him and knocked out. Kellen, who was knowledgeable about programming, managed to hack the system and connect to the surveillance cameras. Meanwhile, Blake infiltrated the dispatch, but he didn't have the password for Mason's computer. Unable to find another way out of the situation, he started messing up the wiring. At that moment, the governor announced that he intended to run for the presidency of the United States. Suddenly, thanks to Blake's actions, the lights went out in the school. Seizing the opportunity, the students broke free and attacked the officers. Lena managed to escape. Mason, giving orders over the radio, had no idea Blake was watching him. Seeing guards ahead, Lena hurried to hide. Mason entered the thinning room. By this time, the students had already been subdued. Victor Woods, the technician, said that it would take half an hour to restore the electricity, and the surveillance cameras would have to be restored separately. One of the officers noticed Lena. Not losing her composure, she showed him the key card she had obtained from Miss Birch, posing as a teacher. When the officer was distracted, Lena attacked him. Blake came to the aid of his classmate, knocking out the officer. Meanwhile, Mason discovered that one student was missing. Lena learned from Blake that he intentionally failed the exam to teach his father a lesson, but something went wrong. An alarm was sounded in the school. Nobody was being allowed to enter or leave the building. Mason ordered all the teachers to be brought to the waiting room. Blake and Lena hid in the ventilation system, wondering what to do next. Blake condemned the girl for selling cheat sheets to children, trying to profit from Elsa's grief. Lena confessed that she was raising money for her mother's treatment. Their family had sold everything they could, but it wasn't enough. Blake asked the girl for forgiveness for his rudeness. They decided to sneak back into the control room to find the exam results. Since Lena had the teacher's access card, it would be easy to do. Mason demanded that all the teachers provide their key cards and identification. The governor learned that something strange was happening at the school where his son was studying. The exam was supposed to have ended a long time ago, but the school was still closed. Concerned parents had still not been reunited with their children who were inside the building. It is not known which of them passed the exam and which did not. The governor went to the scene of the incident. Mason demanded Kendra to provide her key card and identification, but he got distracted. Blake and Lena continued to crawl through the ventilation system. Suddenly Blake fell into the pool and lost consciousness. Lena jumped after him and pulled him out of the water. The governor was informed about the student who escaped from the thinning. At the same time, Lena brought Blake to his senses. They changed out of their school uniforms and into regular clothes. The students who passed the exam were outraged that they were not being released. Lena and Blake did not stop. At one point, the girl accidentally dropped the key card. Then the young people reached one of the classrooms and found all the necessary tools. Using a magnet and wire, Lena made an improvised fishing rod. A guard heard suspicious sounds and tried to open the locked door. Telling Lena to leave, Blake hid. The officer entered the class, looking around. At some point, he noticed Blake hiding. Lena was about to get the key card while the officer left the classroom. Lena almost succeeded in doing so when suddenly the officer appeared. Since he didn't try to stop her, Lena realized it was Blake in disguise. He was going to the thinning room. The governor was panicking about what was happening. Kendra approached her colleague and began flirting with him, discreetly stealing his key card. Lena sneaked into the dispatch room, but getting access to Mason's computer turned out to be much harder than she thought. Kendra showed Mason her key card and identification, thereby deflecting suspicion. But Mr. Glass was flustered when he couldn't find his key card. Mason decided that he was the one responsible for Lena's escape and demanded to know where she was. The technician was finally able to get the electricity running. In the meantime, Lena sent a message to Kellen, asking for his help. Together they managed to hack Mason's computer. Lena gained access to all the data and learned about the tampering with the exam results. It turns out that Ellie, Blake's girlfriend, also got a high score on the test last year, but for some reason it wasn't counted. The governor said in the official news that a student named Lena had sabotaged the school. At that time, journalist Wendy Banks received a provocative video from Kellen showing an officer assaulting an innocent student. The journalist rushed to make the video public. Surveillance cameras started working again. Mason saw that Lena was in the dispatch room. The girl rushed to run. Disguised Blake came into the thinning room and attacked the officers. Meanwhile, Mason caught up with Lena and ordered the guards to take her to the others. However, before that, Lena managed to send the real exam results to Kellen. This was direct evidence that Ellie had been sent to the thinning illegally. Both Blake and Lena ended up at the thinning. Wendy reported live on the falsification of exam results. In reality, Lena passed the test, unlike the governor's son. Dean's reputation was destroyed, but he was not going to give up. Soon Mason called the governor to get approval for the thinning. But Dean replied that changes had to be made. Lena was released. Before leaving, she kissed Blake. As required by law, he will be physically destroyed along with those who failed the exam. Wade Freeman, the son of influential parents, was also grabbed. The thinning began. Seeing her younger sister outside, who also passed the exam, Lena hugged her with tears in her eyes, and then thanked Kendra Birch for her help. In the final scene, we see a truck entering a closed area. This is a secret facility. Everyone who fails the exam is transported there. In reality, they were not deprived of life during the thinning, but only put to sleep. Ellie is also here. Students are kept here as free labor.